Hey friends! Today we're going to talk about my crypto watch list, meaning the cryptocurrencies I'm generally keeping an eye on, the ones I currently have on my radar. We'll discuss which ones I still find interesting, which ones I like, which ones are just okay, some that have become uninteresting maybe because they're too expensive, and a few that are no longer any good, that have really turned into junk. Sometimes that's really just because of the chart. And some I've already fully accumulated, so I wouldn't buy into them anymore. Videos like this always involve a lot of work, so I would really appreciate it if you could leave a like and a comment so the video reaches as many people as possible. Please support me. Believe me, this support really helps me a lot. Thank you very much for that. But now let's talk about the crypto market. The very first cryptocurrency we have here is Bitcoin. And I'll be completely honest with you. Normally, Bitcoin should be the top priority here, but I'm deliberately putting it in this spot because Bitcoin is currently really at an all-time high. Bitcoin is in a great position, and I think there's still good potential with Bitcoin. But this watch list reflects my personal opinion. And to be completely honest with you, right now I'm putting Ethereum above Bitcoin. I find Ethereum much more interesting at the moment, not just because of what's happening behind the scenes, but also from a technical chart perspective. I think there's significantly more potential here. I mean, Bitcoin is valued at almost 8 times as much as Ethereum. Of course, in terms of market cap, we have much more potential. What I really like about Ethereum right now is simply the fact that we can see institutions missed out on the Bitcoin train back then, but now the exact same thing is happening with Ethereum. Institutions are all jumping on the Ethereum bandwagon right now. We're seeing that huge crypto companies like BitDigital are selling millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin and instead buying back Ethereum because they are much more interested in Ethereum and currently consider it to be more valuable. The CEO himself also said, Ethereum is a complete blue chip and is the only asset in this crypto market that is truly relevant for institutions, whether it's in the RWA sector, the stablecoin sector, or anything else. Right now, we really have companies that are building up the same kind of position in Ethereum behind the scenes as MicroStrategy did with Bitcoin. I mean, BitDigital now holds 1.1% of the Ethereum supply, and that in such a short time, we're really seeing massive FOMO towards Ethereum, and it's coming from the big whales, and I really like that. That's why I have to be completely honest. Right now, Ethereum is a much higher priority for me than Bitcoin. And I also have to put Solana as my top priority. Even though Solana isn't exactly cheap right now, I mean $150 in my opinion for what Solana delivers, that's still pretty good. Because Solana has proven itself as the only real Ethereum competitor in this cycle, especially when it comes to things like Memecoins, since Solana is much faster and cheaper, and it's really the only project that actually had real use in this cycle. And these days, Solana is really the only project where you can actually buy stocks like Nvidia, Tesla, Microsoft, MicroStrategy, and so on, directly on the Solana blockchain. All of this is handled through the blockchain, guys. You can't even imagine what kind of impact this will have in the future. This is the kind of thing that attracts retail investors. This is what really draws a lot of people in. This kind of thing takes us in a completely different direction from a market perspective, and I think a lot of this will be built on Ethereum in the future as well. But right now, Solana is the pioneer in this area, so Solana is also a pretty high priority at the moment. Then we have the Memecoin SPX. I would classify it as strong. Of all the Memecoins we have today, in my opinion, this is the best one you could have in your portfolio. It really wasn't undervalued, but in comparison, I think it has good potential. This is truly one of those Murat coins that manages to hold its ground quite well. I mean, we've seen a strong increase, we haven't had any major corrections, and we've managed to build up again in a solid way. So, in my opinion, it's really one of the meme coins that actually makes sense for the long term. Because of the community and the meme behind it. Basically, the idea is that this meme coin mirrors the S&P 500, the largest asset in the world. That's kind of the background. I think this meme project definitely has substance and staying power for the future as well. Next up, we have the project Sky. And this project has been around for quite a while. It has really been built up over the years, but the token only came out last year. We're also in a pretty good position, even from a market perspective. Especially when we look at the TVL, we have to say it already looks very good. In the last cycle alone, nearly 20 billion in TVL, which is really huge. Currently, though, that's decreasing a bit, and accordingly, I have to say it's an interesting project, but at the moment, it's not really interesting for me. Then we have Optimism. And Optimism is a typical layer 2 platform for Ethereum. That means Optimism bundles several Ethereum transactions into one and makes Ethereum transactions cheaper. Layer 2 platforms, however, have become pretty much irrelevant these days. In previous cycles, they were interesting because Ethereum was sometimes significantly too expensive in terms of transaction costs. Nowadays, that's not so important anymore. Ethereum itself has improved significantly both in terms of the blockchain and its performance. And just look at it, sometimes transactions on Ethereum cost 12 cents. That's nothing. It's no longer a problem to pay for these transactions. In the last cycle, they sometimes cost $200 or $300, and that's why layer 2 platforms were interesting. Nowadays, they're not as interesting anymore, and that's why I would rather categorize the project as junk. It does have some substance, yes, but in comparison, there are more interesting things out there. And Pi Network really made a splash this year, seemingly out of nowhere. It came out and had some seriously high price targets that no one would have expected. The project is extremely well known. All the Indians, Chinese, and so on are really hyped about it. In the German-speaking world, it's a bit more irrelevant. The thing is, Pi Network is basically a completely useless coin. Back then, you could mine it using just your regular smartphone, which made it interesting for some people, because even those from poorer backgrounds could make a bit of money with it. It has no use case and will face massive inflation in the future, since the tokens are now gradually being released onto the market. Accordingly, in my opinion, it's pretty irrelevant. I mean, just look at it. Currently, only 7% of the supply is in circulation. So in the coming years, we're going to see massive inflation here, and I have no interest in that. Accordingly, it's absolute garbage. And then we have CRO, also known as Kronos, the token from crypto.com. That was also a super interesting project in the last cycle. I remember everyone was hyping it up. They really had good partnerships. They had their own card and so on. But in this bear market, you could tell they were starting to falter a bit. At some point, their marketing efforts obviously dropped off. And I mean, even the card's rewards percentages dropped significantly. Accordingly, this proprietary credit card is no longer as relevant. People use it less, and you could just tell that in the end it's also a house of cards, something that works well in the mature bull run, but was on the verge of collapse in the bear market. In this case, I would also classify it as trash, simply because it's an exchange coin. We've seen what happened with FTX and so on. Accordingly, you should always be pretty cautious with exchange coins. I still think the Kronos can rise well in this cycle, but as I said, there are just things where I'd be a bit careful, and that's how we have to categorize it here. Then we have Syrup, also known as Maple Finance. I really like this project. We're at 700 million market cap, almost in the top 100, currently ranked 103. I really like this project, so it has to be set as the highest priority. They've built themselves up very well, have risen sharply now, and I'm still speculating here for somewhat lower prices, and I would invest more heavily here. I've already increased my position here, but I like it so much because it's a project with a real use case, fully in the DeFi sector, and the DeFi sector will become much more interesting in a bull run. The higher we go, the more people will want to move into DeFi because they don't want to go to the banks and so on. That's why it's going to get really interesting, but just take a look at this growth already. It's honestly completely crazy. Maple Finance is hitting one on-chain all-time high after another. At the beginning of 2024, 45 million in TVL. Today, it's 1.8 billion. You can't even imagine that. That's really not normal. We're building up continuously here, and by now there's a lot of money on the chain, and compared to the market cap, this thing is absolutely undervalued. 500 million market cap, but a TVL of 1.8 billion. I really like this thing a lot. Then we have Casper. There was truly a complete exception this cycle. The fair launch made people rich. Some people really made several hundred X here. Crazy thing, but right now it's not interesting to me at all, because from a technical chart perspective, it has broken through certain zones that I really don't like, to be honest. Casper is currently weakening quite a lot, and that's why I would wait and see how things develop here. There are just other projects right now that I'm more interested in. With Tau, I also have to say, in my opinion, it's actually the best AI project. It's still not insanely expensive, but I'm still putting it in the done category here because back then we bought BitTensor at $50. I'm not buying right now. I did buy some at $300 or $200, but at the moment I have other priorities. So I have to say BitTensor Tau is a top project, but I've already finished accumulating. Then we have Athena here, another project that has performed well, but has now also seen a significant correction. Still, it's not expensive. Almost 2 billion market cap. The project itself offers stablecoins. You can stake here, you can store assets here. It's basically its own bank focused on stablecoins. And stablecoins have become extremely interesting these days. Stablecoins have really become their own meta by now. Just take a look at these revenues as well. At times, Ethena generated fees of $6 million within just 24 hours. It's really right behind Circle and Tether, so it has basically built a monopoly here. And if things continue like this, Ethena could become a top 10 project in the future. I really like this project, and I have to say, I've already finished accumulating it. In my opinion, we're currently at a pretty cheap price, so I've already completed my accumulation. I'm more inclined to think that we're gonna rise from here, or at least I hope so, and from there I'll just see how things develop. It's also a good layer 1 platform. It kind of found its use case back when we had the Solana hype. Some people even switched over to Avalanche. The problem is we already had a bit of usage on Avalanche, and we immediately noticed that Avalanche transactions were becoming too expensive. And that kind of slowed Avalanche down a bit, and honestly, when it comes to competition, there are better options on the market. It's okay, but there are more interesting projects out there. In my opinion, HVA is still a strong project. They've performed well, built good partnerships, and things are moving in the right direction. Especially if we move more towards ISO and so on this year, it could get even more interesting. I'd place it here for now. Chainlink just isn't in the top 10 anymore these days. But I'm sure we'll fight our way back. Chainlink is really cheap right now and simply an extremely good project. Truly a great project. I think I even have to put it up here. Yes, I have to put it up here because Chainlink is really cheap from a technical analysis perspective, and what they deliver is incredible. Chainlink is still one of the few projects here that actually has a real use case. And I think the biggest news is simply that Chainlink is now working with JP Morgan, the largest bank in the world. And Chainlink will help them as JP Morgan tokenizes more and more things, moves into the RWA sector, and so on. Virtually every crypto project uses Chainlink's or It's a top project. Then we have Hyperliquid here. This is also a project that I'm not currently accumulating because I already made a video about it at $13 or $14, and we've gone up quite a bit since then. It's simply a decentralized exchange, nothing more. You can trade here, but they built up a sort of monopoly, and that's what makes Hyperliquid so special. They have massive applications, seriously. I see it every time on Twitter, multi-billionaires who are really pumping millions into Bitcoin here on Hyperliquid. And that's really noticeable here, especially because Hyperliquid now generates 3 times more revenue than Ethereum. That's completely crazy. Hyperliquid generates an enormous amount of money to the fees, and that's why they've become so big, and they really do have buyback mechanisms and so on. A project that really came out of nowhere, in my opinion, is still really good, but it's already at 13 billion market cap. For me, it's no longer interesting because I already bought it down here. That's why I'm wrapping this up here. I already have enough of it in my portfolio. And I really have to place Polkadot here. Unfortunately, Polkadot has really broken through some key zones, and you really have to say, from a technical analysis perspective, it doesn't look good. Somehow they weren't able to prove themselves in this cycle. I mean, the price went up here, corrected sharply, went up briefly, not even that much, and then corrected even more heavily. Yeah, I really don't like that from a chart analysis perspective. I'll put XLM here for now. It could become interesting in combination with XRP if XRP were to attract more interest at the moment. Then we have Near Protocol. I would really place it here. Currently, it's not interesting. And I have to be completely honest here, because we've talked about Near Protocol quite a few times. It's a great project, but from a chart analysis perspective, it doesn't look very good at the moment. We're having a bit of trouble right now. What I also don't like here is the on-chain activity. We're really dropping off significantly in terms of TVL, transaction volume, and so on. As a result, you can clearly see that other projects are currently catching up more. That's why I would categorize it here for now. Arbitrum is basically the same as Optimism. At the moment, no one is really interested in it, because right now there is no need for another layer 2 platform. Then we have Aave. And I really have to say, Aave is ranked quite high for me. Because from a chart perspective, we're in a good position with a market cap of 4 billion. But look at what Aave is doing. It's truly a leader in the DeFi space. And as I said, the DeFi sector will become much more interesting during the euphoria phase of the cycle. They have real revenue, real utility. That's what makes Aave so special. Just look at the total value locked. We have $27 billion locked. That's absolutely crazy. In the last cycle, we already had good TVL, but this time we've built up even more significantly. And yet, in terms of price, we're still cheaper than in the last cycle. That definitely suggests that we're still undervalued at the moment. Then we have the Memecoin Bonk. I would place it up here because Bonk with SPX 6900 is an interesting thing, since Bonk is the first meme project on Solana, and that's what makes Bonk so special. It's the first meme project on Solana, and if Solana rises significantly higher, Bonk will automatically follow. That's why I think Bonk will definitely remain relevant. I don't need to tell you much about the Render token. It's a major player in the AI sector, forming more and more partnerships, some even with Nvidia and so on. It's become really prominent by now. I really like that. Then we have SUI. I also have to place SUI here. SUI is doing quite well in terms of price. I'd say 11 billion market cap, but when it comes to TVL, we were really able to get something out of it. And above all, we're still doing very well in terms of TVL at the moment. I like that. We haven't seen a stronger correction here as with other projects. We're standing very stable. That means the utility, the application continues. That's what I really like here. As for VeChain, I just have to say, it's not interesting to me at the moment. It's a good project and all, but the thing is, VeChain has this concept, and right now that concept just isn't all that relevant. People are interested in other things at the moment, and we accumulated VeChain back when it was much cheaper. That's why I have to put it in this category here. Ondo, on the other hand, I actually have to put at the very top as the highest priority, because Ondo has also secured a partnership with JP Morgan. And the thing is, Ondo itself is once again a project that is actually being used. Just look at the TVL. We've seen continuous growth here. I really like that. In the RWA sector, no one can hold a candle to Ondo. They're covering the entire RWA sector, tokenized stocks, houses, real estate, and so on. You know what I'm talking about. Ondo is the best and biggest project in the RWA sector, and I think the RWA sector is still quite small, but it's going to get really big, and Ondo will be the market leader there. Pepe, also a meme coin, is going to stick around the cycle because it's just a cool meme. It came out of nowhere, and in my opinion, it definitely still has good potential to rise. And with XRP, I just have to put it down here in the done category because we've already seen a strong increase with XRP. And I think there are other more interesting projects at the moment that are simply cheaper in terms of market cap and currently have a bit more potential. And with that, that's it for the watch list. Let me know in the comments what you think about it. If you want me to present my watch list to you every month or every 2 months, then you know what to do. Leave a like and a comment, let me know, and then I'd say see you next time, friends. Bye.